I'm sure many of you know how much I love the lore of Sea of Thieves and feel it is an underutilised aspect of the game. While Rare have chosen a rather indirect way of world building through subtle hints and environments, the main story missions are some of the most engaging and memorable parts of the game. Here are some of my ideas for tall tales we can explore next. Despite getting a complete novel discussing the Pirate Lord's discovery of the Sea of Thieves, we never really learn all that much about him. The novel Athena's Fortune details the rediscovery of the Sea of Thieves, the first few years of Ramsay's adventure, and the betrayal by the Gold Hoarder. Then there's at least a 20-year gap between, and the next time we hear from the Pirate Lord is well towards the end of his career. We do get a bit of insight into him dealing with Flameheart and being defeated by the Burning Blade 9 years into his adventures, but that's pretty much it. Here I propose a campaign in which we follow the footsteps of the Pirate Lord, detailing the events of the formation of Athena's Fortune, the years sailing in an alliance with the likes of Mercia and Captain Eli Slate, culminating in his eventual death by the 3 daggers in his back and becoming a ghost. As we can't really time travel, it would be nice to have a similar mechanic to the Lantern, allowing us to have a glimpse into the past, along with speaking with characters that knew him in the past. I think this would be a great time to add Lasidi and DeMarco into the mix, exploring more about their relationship with their absent father. The structure would revolve around visiting objects linked with the Pirate Lord's life, such as the Magpie's Wing, the Reaper's Mark pendant, which seems to be missing, and his journals. I'm sure we could get 3 to 5 tall tales out of this as a mini anthology, with rewards based on his life. We could get the Ghost Curse for getting all commendations for this, similar to the Gold Curse for the Shores of Gold. I'm sure Rare has more backstory planned for him in the pipeline, but we just have to wait and see. The Kraken in Sea of Thieves needs to be fleshed out, not only gameplay wise, but lore wise. We know the Kraken is the last child of the Old Mother, a giant Kraken that once lay waste to the merfolk when the ancients were still kicking. The current Kraken was awakened by Ramsay and proceeds to fight his crew, Briggsy and Eli Slate at the Golden Sands outpost, only to be nearly blinded and killed by the Alliance. That is why the Kraken does not raise its head above the water anymore, for fear of having its eyes damaged again. This Tall Tales series would revolve around the Kraken becoming more aggressive, appearing more often throughout the seas, with it attacking outposts and damaging them. Along with this, the other creatures of the sea, like the Megalodon, would become more common and aggressive during the time of release. This would include us travelling to each outpost in order to find why the creatures have been disturbed and what's causing them to attack the inhabitants of the Sea of Thieves. The structure would be almost a sort of detective/puzzle quest, where you have to follow the clues to find the next tall tale. The story would have you start at Golden Sands, speaking to the barmaid who recalled the Kraken attacking when she was a little girl, and the Pirate Lord bravely defeating it with his crew. This causes you to investigate some ink left on the beach and a few shipwrecks scattered around the shallows. Following this, you would have to find the merfolk ruins and translate them across the shores of Plenty to find the origin of the Krakens, giving us more insight into the ancients and the merfolk, with us borrowing the Lantern again and investigating Kraken's fall, showing Old Mother being chained up by the ancients while she slept. The payoff is that the Order of Souls have found a chest to draw the Kraken, which they have cast a hex over it which has allowed them to open it, with a purple crystal that can control the last Kraken. The member of the Order is a rogue mystic who is banished for their extreme measures, and wanted to use the Kraken to defend against Flameheart's fleet should it return, and destroy the current skeleton ships to easily retrieve the captain's skulls. This culminates in a boss battle against the Kraken, where the villain forces it to rear its head. The Kraken would bite your ship, where you can hit the eye to deal massive damage, all while the Kraken will spray ink on your ship, poisoning you. Once the Kraken is defeated, we have to destroy the crystal, breaking the Order members' control over the Kraken, pacifying it from then on. Not only would we see this improve the Kraken as a boss fight, but also shed some light on the old inhabitants of the seas. Of course, this campaign needs to happen. If we're to get an area in the Sea of the Damned, then we also need some tall tales telling us exactly what it is, how it came to be, and why so many prominent characters have ties with it. I would really like this to feature a ghostly version of the ferryman's corpse that gives us a lantern but shows everything as if it were in the real world, like a flipped version of the fate of the Morning Star. We'd have to venture around the Sea of the Damned to find famous characters who have been banished from the Sea of Thieves. I'd personally like the story to revolve around finally destroying Grey Marrow for good, to force him to only exist as a part of the Fort of the Damned encounter, with us freeing some bound good guys on the way. This way Grey Marrow would be stuck in an endless loop at the Fort of the Damned for eternity, with no way of coming back to the land of the living. This would also be a good time to find out the origin of the Sword of Souls, possibly seeing how it was created and how it became imbued with such power. Either way, this area has potential for story and gameplay reasons. This is possibly the most far out idea, but I certainly think it would be great if it was added. I don't think we will ever learn what the ancients were in the Sea of Thieves, but that doesn't mean we can't hope. The tall tale starts with rumours from Umbra that an ancient has come back from the dead, and a murmur around the Sea of Thieves that the most fearsome pirates are looking to find them due to the vast amount of riches they may possess. but one man who spent his life working out what the Sea of Thieves is wants to find the Ancient for himself, but can't. The pirate lord who endeavoured to find out more about them will give you some clues into finding a cache of his crewmate's work, Mercia, who had journaled all their experiences across the Sea of Thieves. We end up finding out that there lies an island west of the Ancient Isles that no pirate has ever reached, and that we need to find part of Ramsay's physical scepter to part the shroud, with the shroud breaker having spent its energy for a few more years. Ramsay tells us that we have to find the 3 parts, the staff, the skull and the gems to complete it, with the location entrusted to 3 of his most trusted allies, and they each have a trial given to them to find a worthy successor. The first was Mercia, who, long gone, had left clues in her writings, which simply involves figuring out where the part is held and digging it up, rewarding players with the skull. The second is Grace Morrow, who has the player hunt and defeat the legendary Red Maw, a megalodon that has long since haunted the Devil's Roar. This involves playing the summoning south of the Devil's Roar. Once defeated, Grace gives you the staff. The final part is from Lorina, who was entrusted with the gem shortly after denying the Pirate Lord a place in Athena's fortune. Players have to find and track down 3 coins from 3 skeleton thrones, which are randomly generated on each tall tale, believing this feat to represent the daring deeds of the Bilge Rats, and will be a good way to make them useful again. Once the 3 parts are assembled, Ramsay will bestow his magic onto the scepter, allowing us to part the shroud once more. We sail west of Discovery Ridge and discover a thick jungle island and a large step pyramid in the middle, towering above the island. Upon reaching the top, we find nothing, just a glorious view across the island. The ground shakes, causing the middle of the pyramid to fall through, with the crew plunging down into the water below. Here we have another gauntlet of traps like the Shores of Gold, with the temple rumbling more and more as we get further into the dungeon. Skeletons garnished with ancient clothing try to stop you, but are too decayed to even stand. Eventually we find a huge room with 2 large waterfalls, with a giant sarcophagus in the middle. Upon moving closer, a huge phantom climbs out of the sarcophagus, resembling one of the statues at Tribute Peak. The phantom is immune to damage and can only be banished by destroying 3 large gems around the room. When this is defeated, a room at the back opens, revealing a large amount of gold and a giant tablet, which Ramsay soon appears for another speech. Before we get to read the tablet, he whisks it away, leaving us a large loot haul, which we can row to our ship via a river and rowboat that flows out of the temple. This final one is essentially a continuation of the current story, revolving around Flameheart and his son. It would cover more of Flameheart's backstory and his son's first journey into the Sea of Thieves. Junior essentially was tricked by the Order of Souls into finding a cursed chest, which resulted in his ship, the Silver Blade, sinking into the Devil's Shroud. Following this, he became cursed by a golden chalice on an island that may have been Tribute Peak or another island swallowed by the Shroud, meeting a skeleton lord known as the Captain. These tall tales would not only flesh out Flameheart Sr., but also his son, where we can find out what happened to both of them in their separate careers. The latter could be about tracking down his former cursed crewmates, leading to Flameheart Jr. himself and possibly even the Silver Blade. A lot of this will encompass the events of the Tales from the Sea of Thieves book, with characters and factions making an appearance. This is definitely something I really enjoy and is my most wanted out of any of the campaigns on the list. I won't say too much more, as I think we'll be seeing this story soon, or at least parts of this, coming into fruition in the coming months. A nice little tease for a future video. All in all, I think it's safe to say I really want more Tall Tales. Even though they don't have the most replayability, they're truly a spectacle when all comes together. The story and lore of Sea of Thieves is widely underrated and underappreciated. I think that it needs to be brought more front and centre in the future. That's all for this video. If you made it this far and enjoyed it, please consider subscribing, dropping a like and commenting. What was your favourite concept? What Tall Tales do you want to see in the future? Let me know down in the comments. I won't spoil next Thursday's video, but I think it's going to be a good one, so look out for that. Thanks again for watching, and as always, I'll see you in the next video.